It's going to be a ramble review. Also, it's kind of more of just like a hardcore judgment and opinion rather than an actual like review of the structure and how things were shot, because we're going to be talking about Abducted in Plain Sight. If you don't want any spoilers, don't watch this video because it's physically impossible not to talk about spoilers.
Exactly. I mean, you may or may not know it was a true story.
It was a freaking true story.
Maybe you should know about it.
This is a documentary that has recently been put on Netflix. It has been out for a while, but it's recently been retitled and put on Netflix.
What was it titled?
It was titled something else. I can't think of what it is. If I can remember to put it, I'll put it on the screen somewhere down here. Woo!
I didn't know that.
But yes, and a lot of people are talking about it, and for freaking good reason.
Jesus.
Because this is the most effed up story I have ever heard in my life.
Like, I was telling people at work about it and they were like, oh, I thought you were talking about like a made up.
Literally, I was telling my mum this as well, and she was like, is this a real life story? I was like, yes! And I'm like, I know there's aliens, there's like so much stuff going on, but like, anyway, if you don't know the gist of the story, it is about a kind of abduction, kidnapping that happened in the 70s?
Yeah, the 70s.
In America. It happened more than once to this same little girl, and this whole family are just messed up.
A lot of shit went down.
People, and it's just a whole weird string of events that happened, and it's very difficult to follow. I can't remember every single detail because a lot happened in, was it like an hour and a half?
Yeah, it was a wild ride.
I was like, within 20 minutes, I'm like, surely there can't be any more happening in this story.
Surely.
And it just kept going.
What could they possibly do now?
I don't even know where to start. Honestly, I don't even know where to start.
So, there's this family, mum, dad, 3 girls, and they're very religious. They became very close friends with this other family, and the dad at that family was named Bob, and he became very, very close to the eldest daughter, Jan. And in the interviews, she would say, like, you know, he was like a father to me, and like, you know, they would all get along really, really well, but Bob had this very weird infatuation with Jan, and he would like take her on outings by herself, and like they'd have sleepovers, and it'd just get very, very weird. It is weird, considering he had his own children as well. Yes, that makes it even weirder. The way this is actually shot is like there's reenactments of what goes on, which are insanely uncomfortable.
They really are, but I feel like they make sense in this story because you don't necessarily want to conjure up those images in your own brain.
No, this is true.
But yeah, it's weird as heck.
Yeah, so there's obviously interviews with the family members, like Jan and the parents and the sisters.
There's pictures, there's like interview recordings and voicemails and things like that, because they tapped a lot of their phones a lot of the times. They have those recordings.
With like the FBI and the police and stuff. And basically the first kidnapping was, he said that he was going to take her horseback riding, and basically they never came back. He was like, oh, you need to take these like allergy medications, allergy pills, so you don't obviously like the hay, the horses, and she like completely passed out and then woke up in a motorhome, which was his motorhome, to a tape recording saying that she was actually half alien and that she needed to complete this mission with a human to have a child to like save humanity, otherwise her family would get like vaporized or like killed or something, and if she didn't do it, her younger sister would have to do it, or her sister would go blind or something like that. And so she had until she was 16 to do this mission of becoming pregnant, and she was like, oh, go into the other room and you'll find your human like partner, and it was Bob, the dad. Because obviously she was super religious, like she believed this story. Like, what was she like, 12? Well, she was 12 at this point. I suppose that is liable, but you believe a lot of stuff when you're 12. If you're convinced enough and you're completely on your own and you're trusting this one adult and he's saying, oh my god, this is true. In circumstances you can understand how she would believe it. And like he'd gone through this lengthy process of like recording all these tapes, and then he like planned out how they were going to have sex, so like if they were ever found, like they'd never know that, like, you know, she'd been raped and stuff, and it was just because insane. She was so young, she couldn't even get pregnant yet. Well, the whole reason, I was watching it and I was just like, hang on, she's 12, has she even started her period? Apparently she didn't even start her periods until she was about 17, 19, I think, because she was such a small little person that she didn't, or potentially because of the stress and the trauma she went through delayed that also. But
Yeah, so that was another reason why he did it when she was so young, because then
she would never get pregnant.
she'd never get pregnant.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about that. And before this even happened, he had an affair with the mother. The father of the family gave him a hand job in a car to relieve him of all the stress he had in his life. And this family is just insanely fucked up.
Yeah.
So fucked up.
Because even after she had, like, been returned home after this ordeal, I'm pretty sure the mother and him carried on.
Yeah, they had like
relationship.
sexual relationship.
And I wouldn't put it past the father of that.
No.
To happen also.
Considering, like, after, like, they ended up in Mexico and ended up getting married, and he said, like, I'm only going to bring her back if you let us get married in the US. And they were obviously like, no. And then they came back to the USA. They were going to press charges against him, but then Bob's wife came around and was just like, look, if you press charges, then he's going to tell everyone up that him and the dad had homosexual relations. And the family were like, oh no, we can't have that. Let's drop the charges and let our daughter suffer. And at that point I was like, y'all are fucking stupid.
It's ridiculous.
You were putting your child safely,
like, they would rather
behind that, you know,
like protect their child's rapist than
protect their child.
to protect their child.
And that was just the first time.
And that was just the first time.
Oh mate.
It goes to the point where this child is so infatuated with him because she's like 12, 13, nearly getting on 14 at this point, I think. And she's like, oh yeah, I want to marry him. I love him. Like, this is the only love she's probably ever known at this point, if you can call it that. It's really not.
She was like neglecting her family.
Yeah, she was like, I want to run away. I want to be with Bob, because he'd moved away, I think, hadn't he, at this point?
Yeah, I think to like Salt Lake City or something.
Yeah, and so she's like, I want to be with him, and
Bob had said like not to tell anybody about this, otherwise the aliens would kill them, and like had not to go near her dad or any other man.
Yeah. So that covered his back by not being able to tell anything about like her rape or any of the situation, because she was just, otherwise the mission would be incomplete and all of this crap would happen.
Yeah. And then he lived in a motorhome, I think, in Salt Lake City, and he came into her room one night and kidnapped her again.
Yeah.
And he sent her off to a Catholic girls' school, enrolled her under another name, and I believe kept seeing her.
Yeah, he'd like told at the girls' school that they were like,
yeah, he was a CIA agent,
so that if anyone came asking for them, they were like bad guys, and she couldn't be found because obviously they were like
undercover and
so.
witness protection and all that. And oh my god, he planned this out so well.
It's just so terrible.
And eventually she was brought home, but even then she was like a different person.
And yeah, and she still wanted to run away and be with him, and then he ended up buying like a family amusement park or something.
Oh yeah.
God knows how he did that. And so she was like, I want to go there, I want to work there for the summer with Bob or whatever. So I think that they ended up letting her go.
I can't actually remember what eventually happened for him to like get imprisoned. I can't
actually remember either. I think this was getting to the point where she was like borderline getting to the age of like 16, so she was like, oh my god, everything's gonna bad's gonna happen. And then she ended up like figuring out on her own that none of this was true.
Yeah.
Like by the age of 16, where like no one was vaporized, none of this bad stuff happened.
Yeah.
And
I mean, her dad's florist shop did get set on fire, but that was all him setting up a plan to make Jan believe that, you know, bad things were gonna happen.
Yeah. And we flash forward about 25 years into the future.
Yeah.
Where he's a convicted rapist for more than one child. Like, it happened to multiple other girls as well, so it wasn't just Jan that was affected by this. And they meet face to face in court for like the first time after 25 years, and she gives a freaking great speech.
She does.
To him. Good God, woman, you tell him right. But also they're starting to write books and go and do speeches about this, but it's like the mother that initiates doing that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just so wrong. You know what I mean? Like,
considering she did all this shit to her daughter and did this shit with this paedophile rapist.
Yeah.
And then eventually she's just like, oh no, you should definitely write about your experiences. Like, how sick is that?
I would understand if Jan herself wanted to write her memoirs and write about that experience.
Yeah, to keep people aware.
But considering it was like the mother, I think, initiated that and started writing it. And I'm like, like profiting off this. I know obviously Jan was involved and she did go around and like speak as well. And she's now an actress. So he ends up being convicted, doesn't he? and then he ends up killing himself instead of serving his sentence because he doesn't want to be in prison. So he takes, I think it's like he overdoses on heart medication or something, and then he dies. So it's a whole lot of shit that happens. There's just so many weird things within this story.
It's actually hard to believe some of them. I was just thinking, is this actually real or have they made some of this up?
Just like part of the interviews, you know what I mean? Like when they're just like, the mother especially, when she's like smiling, she's like, oh, I had such a good relationship with Bob. This was such an exciting time for me.
Yeah, it was just so weird how they could talk about it while expressing those emotions.
Like they were still happy, they were like looking fondly on those memories, and to me that just, something just seems very off about that. One of the calls that they had like recorded is where like Bob calls her mum and he's like, I've talked to Jan, I'm not sure how she's getting her money, I think she might be like doing prostitution and drugs and stuff. She's like, oh. And it's like, anything else? Like, she's like, oh, I can't sleep tonight now. And I'm like...
She doesn't seem to be alertly, like, you know, she doesn't seem to be in any form of emergency to go help her at all.
Yeah, because they waited, like, how long was it? 2 weeks? If not longer? To, like, even...
on the first kidnapping.
If not even file a report that she was even missing.
Because they were like, oh, no, don't do that. It'll upset the children or upset Bob.
It's like, oh, no, it's fine. Bob, I trust Bob. And it's like, oh. I'm pretty sure... most of the family are still alive. I know that her father passed away last year, but they were still married up until last year.
Considering like Bob would call up her mother and be like, you need to leave your husband and be with me and marry me. And
but the only reason he was doing all that is so he had that blackmail.
Yeah.
So he was just a ridiculously good manipulator to adults as well as children.
He like broke down her family around her just to get to her. Like he would work on everyone, not just her. And that's just insane. I have
nothing against religious people at all, but this is like, they put their faith in him because he was obviously a religious person also. Hardly, if he did all those things that he did. But like, they're like, oh no, it's fine, he's in our church, he's in this, we trust him. And I'm like, really though? Did they not have any gut instinct to say like, oh, something's a little bit weird about this?
I think I was talking to Chris about it and he was saying like back in the 70s, like things like this just didn't happen. Like nowadays we hear about it so often, but back in the 70s it was like unheard of for these things to happen. So it's not partly understandable, but I suppose like back then you didn't really know what a paedophile or rapist was.
Well, yeah, that's what they were saying. Like the police officer that was being interviewed, they're like, they didn't use the word paedophile or whatever back then because it wasn't really a thing. Even though it just wasn't, no one ever talked about it, you know? Like it wasn't in the news, it wasn't like, because people just suppressed all of that instead of just owning up to it or just saying like, yes, my daughter was raped, I'd rather everyone know about this and the rapist be behind bars than, you know, people know about my homosexuality and stuff like that.
Honestly. Yes, the 70s were a different time.
They were, but also human beings, you know?
So how can you be so dumb? Like, honestly,
I just don't even.
I finished it and I was like, I have a lot of questions.
I know.
First of all, what the fuck?
Like, it's not often that you watch real life stories and you're like, did this actually happen?
Like, are you sure you did not make this up? Like, if this was a fictional story, people would say it was a little bit too far-fetched.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Yeah.
Like, how is it a true life story?
I feel like it's getting to the point now because it's got so much like hype around it because everyone's just like
obsessed with crime documentaries at the time.
Yeah, because the whole like Ted Bundy thing that's happening at the moment, and like just bewildered that this is an actual thing. Yeah. I feel like this could end up being turned into like a movie or something.
I don't
like they'd be sick enough to be like, oh yeah, we'll give you the rights to this. You know what I mean? I don't want to watch that either. Like that was enough.
I think I read somewhere that the director or filmmaker was planning on like 2 sequels. I was like, what else could you possibly have to say?
Yeah, I was reading an article and they're like, oh yeah, we had to cut stuff out, and I was like, what?
I don't want to know what you had to cut out.
I don't either. There's no point to this video at all. I feel like we just needed to have a discussion about it and we thought we'd share this with you.
Why not?
Because we want to hear what other people have to think about this. What other information can you give us about this?
Do you have theories?
Do you have theories like
conspiracy theories?
Literally, I'd love to read what other people think about this.
Same.
If people have different opinions, tell me why, because like
please,
if you can justify any of that,
if you can convince me these ain't the stupidest parents in the world.
Literally, how
This is the whole point of Ramble reviews, because all we do is just talk about like a load of rubbish.
We really do.
About stuff.
But yeah, that's all I've got to say about that.
We needed to express our feelings.
We really did need to express our feelings. So, I hope you have enjoyed our extra ramble for this week. We're going to try and film an extra ramble.
Yes.
Each time we go to the cinema with a TV show or just a general topic in general, I suppose, like this.
Hopefully it's like some trailer reactions.
Yeah, trailer reactions. If anything's coming up or you want us to react to anything specific, let us know. Yep. We'll try and do that, even if we might have already seen it. I suppose we can still have a little discussion about it.
We can do that.
Because I don't watch a lot of trailers, to be fair. So
I shouldn't watch as many trailers as I do.
I feel like my reactions might not be that interesting, so I'm just going to be like, okay.
And moving on.
Moving on, but, you know, opens up for discussion and all that. So, we've had a very disturbing evening of discussions. Subscribe to Rihanna.
Subscribe to Ella.
Subscribe to this.
Okay, bye.
Hope you've enjoyed our talk about drug use and abductions.
I shouldn't have thumbs that up. That was
not an appropriate moment for a thumbs.
Sorry.